Hello and welcome to Medicine Man. Today we are going to look at a very interesting resource for all professionals who are interested in giving a head start to their careers. Too often we realize quite late in our careers that if we had taken certain steps, then perhaps we could have been way ahead in our career graph than we are currently. So, whether you are someone just starting their career, or someone in mid career, or someone even at the later stage of your career, this resource should be immensely useful to you because it is written by two veterans, Mr. Gambhir, a Harvard graduate, and Sunder Ramachandran, who is very well known to you uh, for all those pharma professionals. Sunder uh, started his career in the pharma field with Pfizer and then moved on to GSK, and then now currently is with Dr. Reddy's. So before we dive into the discussions, let me give you an overview of the authors and the book Head Start. Sundar Ramchandran is well known to most of the pharma professionals, and he has been one person whom I have admired for the way he has switched lanes at the right time for the right opportunities and made a great career. And Vivek Gambhir is a veteran with 30 plus years in transformative leadership across consumer goods, technology, consulting, and investing. He is a graduate of Harvard Business School, and he has been with the whole lot of companies from Bain and Co., one of the leading consulting firms, and the managing director of Godrej Consumer Products, and the CEO of Boat, which I'm sure you'd have used as a headphone, or even the wristband or a health band, or many of those things that have come out from this very, very innovative company. So, what we will be doing is to look at the framework of Head Start, and I will be discussing with Sundar some of the key chapters or the learnings from the book Head Start, which is to be an avid learner, how to be a team player, be a boss magnet, uh, be a career transition expert, be a go getter, and be a marathon runner. Now, all these things, terms sound very familiar to us and very simple, but they are not so simple as they sound to be. And it's really great to read this resource, which is not only written by these two veterans, but also has insights from over 100 professionals from across various sectors, including the pharma industry. So let's move on now to my discussion with Sundar Ramchandran. Good morning, Sundar, and it's wonderful to have you on Medicine Man. And congratulations on your first book, along with your colleague, Mr. Gambhir. It's wonderful to have an opportunity to write about your experiences that will benefit the younger professionals so they don't make the same mistakes that you and I and your colleague have made. Now, I would say that there are some inevitable mistakes that we all make, and they're, probably unavoidable. But more importantly, there are mistakes that can really damage your career. So, what do you have to share about those mistakes which a professional must avoid in his career so that he gets a head start?
First of all, Anup, fantastic to be with you. I've been an ardent follower of Medicine Man and your work personally in terms of building the whole pharma community over the last decade. So thank you for having me on your show. So look, I think when you're building a long career, you make many tactical errors, mistakes, things that you think would work out but don't turn out the way as you had intended over the years. But the two that I think we'd like to focus on, and we talk about it in the book as well, is one, we see a lot of young professionals, and we've been there ourselves, not being kind to themselves. The whole idea of thinking of every single error as the one that's going to be sort of make or break for you. So one of the things we say in our book is, you think of the career like a marathon, right? So really, no one event is either monumental enough to sort of solve for everything, and in the same way, no one event is going to bring you down. So I think if things don't work out, you got to be kinder to yourself. You got to pick yourself up and keep moving. And I think very important not to use harsh language. I mean, we can sometimes be our own worst enemies, right? Be super critical and beat ourselves down. So I think that's one of the things, just from a mental framing point of view, that we recommend everybody avoids. We've done that. We wish we'd known that sooner. I think the other one is just embrace your journey, right? One of the things Vivek and I say in the book is you do you, right? In the world that we are in today, it's very easy to sort of look around and feel, hey, everybody around you has this super curated LinkedIn profile and looks like everyone else but you has figured it all out. And as we all know from our experience, we still are figuring things out, right? So I
Yeah.
think uh, every journey, every career is very unique. There's no right or wrong. At the end of the day, it boils down to what works for you. Do you enjoy doing what you're doing? So really, the less, although comparisons are inevitable, but as you go down that rabbit hole, just the awareness to identify that and make sure that you don't go down any deeper, and say, hey, you know what, I'm fine. I mean, I'm doing what I'm enjoying. And if that means that that takes longer, to sort of really hit some of the other external benchmarks of success, and so be it. So embracing your own journey and being kind to yourself would be the two lessons we've learned. We wish we had learned that earlier, and we hope through our book, youngsters, find this validating, right, when they commit those errors or they find themselves in the comparison trap.
Great. I think that's a wonderful way to put it, is that we all make mistakes, but the challenge is that how quickly we pick ourselves up and validate ourselves, because at the end of the day, we do have a lot of things going for us. And
Yep.
even when we make mistakes, we need to focus on those things, that what we have going for us, what makes us unique, rather than spending time on the mistakes that we have made. Great one. The other question I have for you, Sundar, is that mentors or sponsors, whatever you call them, are very important for us in organizations. So I think there's a real challenge, especially for the field people who are by themselves, unlike the office staff, to find a mentor. So, how does one go about actively seeking a mentor? What would be your advice to the professionals?
Yeah, I think sometimes in the organizational context, it's very easy to get overwhelmed, right? Because these words get thrown at you:
Yeah.
sponsors, mentors, coaches, and then you've got obviously managers that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. The way we think about it, and that's our recommendation in the book as well, is just look at role models around you, right? And let's keep it simple. I mean, look at your own organization. Your role models could be people that you see in the office and you want to emulate in terms of a certain behavior that they demonstrate, or in terms of the work ethic, or in terms of their attention to detail, as an example. There could be many facets to this, right? Start with that. And just reach out. One of the things that we are big fans of and we're encouraging young professionals to do is what we're calling these no agenda check-ins,
Yeah.
right? And the idea being, because it can be very, if you're a young person, it can be very overwhelming to reach out to somebody senior, because you're
Yes.
always thinking, well, what am I going to say? How am I going to add value to them? And almost feeling embarrassed. And I think
Mm.
80% of us don't even make that phone call or write that email. So
Yeah.
we're actually encouraging, having been on both sides, we want to tell young professionals that, look, you'd be very surprised. We actually, all leaders make the time when they get requests like this, because this is almost like call of duty, right? To be able to
Right.
contribute and give it back. So the first step is to just identify role models. These are people around you. If you're a field professional, there could be other more senior field professionals that you really admire for their work ethic. Reach out to them, ask them for a conversation, and don't put pressure on yourself. Don't worry about what is the value that I'm going to add, or what's that smart thing I'm going to say in that chat. Just show
Mhm.
up, talk about yourself, talk about some of the challenges you may be facing, and keep this very organic. And you don't have to get the first conversation right? As you keep doing it, as you keep building this muscle of engaging with mentors, role models, leaders, you'll get more and more comfortable and you'll find a rhythm. But I think important piece is to start, not overthink this. If you like somebody in the company for what they do, drop them an email, make them a phone call, tell them that, hey, I love the way you show up. I love the way you delivered that presentation. I love that piece of report that you put together. I'd love to learn from you. Right? That's it. That's a great place to start. And you'd be surprised how many people would very readily say yes to that request. So give it a shot.
Great. So I think you made it very simple. Look around for role models or those people's behavior or their achievements you would like to do sometime in the future, and try a few of them. Don't get intimidated. I mean, I remember Steve Jobs when he was a young student. Picking up the phone at Hewlett Packard and talking to Mr. Packard himself and saying, "Hey, I like this a couple of these resistors and whatnot." So he says, "Come over and work in mine." And it was a huge, mind-blowing experience for him. So he says that always feel free to ask help. People are more than willing to do so. So great. Uh,
I think if I can just add to that, Anup, I
yeah,
think
sure.
one of the things we say in the book is this whole call to action of we're telling professionals, hey, come as you are, right? Because I
Yeah.
think all of us, and we've all been through this, right? We're all waiting to become a more smarter, prettier, better
Mm,
version of ourselves
yeah,
before we
yeah,
reach out,
yeah.
right? And obviously with experience you learn there's nothing like that, right? There's no one point where you will start ticking all the boxes. So wherever you are, however you are, whatever you feel maybe your strengths or your opportunities, that's good enough. Just make that call, because all that you're trying to do when you make that phone call or when you write that email or WhatsApp is asking for support, asking for guidance, right? So don't put pressure on yourself to really show up in a particular way. Just wherever you are, get started. Action, I think, is what will drive results and will drive mentors and sponsors towards you.
Right. That's a very good point. Be authentic, be yourself. People are more likely to, appreciate that rather than you're trying to, make yourself somebody you're not. So, Sundar, in today's world, resilience is a word that's thrown about a lot. So I would like you to tell me how professionals need to look at their career with a long-term mindset and not just short-term wins and gains, which is of course in pharma, very easy to get into that hitting the targets and think that is it. So and they may have downfalls at times, and so can you throw some light and what you have to say that about resilience in your book?
No, absolutely. I think, one of the sections in our book, the final section of our book, is actually what we call be a marathon runner,
Yeah.
right? And the idea there is to really embrace this mindset of, the marathoner's mindset within, let's say, the corporate environment or within an entrepreneurial environment. And I think if you think about that, and if you think about resilience as a standalone word, right? Sometimes we can sort of over-index on the literal meaning and say, hey, this is really about getting tough, not giving up, endurance, your ability to go through pain, things like that, right? But the
Mhm.
moment you think of work and you think longitudinal, you think 40
Right.
years, which is, or
Right.
maybe even longer,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
we're in the pharmaceutical, I mean, both of us are in the
yeah,
healthcare business, and we know people are only going to live longer as we go along.
yeah.
So, you're not going to put your feet up on the table at any particular age. As long as you're healthy, you're going to continue to work. So when you think long term, automatically, I think your ability to take a few blows increases, right? And one of the things we are telling professionals through our book is it's as important to manage your energy, right? Because for you to stay the course over a 40-year period, you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, right? Because things will go wrong. They always do. They have for all of us and for you as well. And that's not a big deal. So when things don't work out, when something doesn't work out the way you try to pivot, it didn't work out. You maybe tried starting up on your own, it didn't work out. Well, it's fine. Just cut your losses, get back on track. And every time something doesn't work out, you just say, hey, you know what? This is, maybe what, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. And don't make a big deal about it, because that's 1 or 2 years of a 40, 50-year journey. So when you start putting things into that perspective, you start being, again, like I said at the beginning, you start being kinder to yourself. And that is the form of resilience that we are trying to endorse, right? Not to say become thick-skinned and go through it. No, that's not the coping mechanism. The coping mechanism is to actually change your perspective and say, hey, I'm in it for the long term. which means there will be waves where things are working out well for me, and there will also be phases and waves when things don't go to plan, and that's all right. That's what it's going to be all about, right? So you acknowledge that whole journey, you embrace that whole journey, and that gives you the strength to deal with the positives that careers and life will throw at you, and also sometimes the lows that a career will throw at you, and I think both are important is the whole idea that we want to encourage through our book.
Great. I think that's a fantastic perspective that one needs to have a 40-year, long-term view, which very few of the professionals actually think about it. And it's only when you're nearing your 50s or early 40s or late 40s that you begin to look at yourself and says, oh, I've gained such a lot of expertise. I wish I had put it in some way that would build what you call as the second run or the second wind for your career. So I think that fits very well along with this finding a mentor or somebody to enable you to look at both your failures as well as this long-term option. So when senior
Oh, absolutely.
professionals tell you, it's a 40-year career, it's
Yeah.
very helpful. Great.
And I think if you just as an extension of that, right? I think sometimes we're only thinking when we say careers, we're only thinking about the corporate world, right? Where you have
Yeah,
a very specific retirement age, and
yeah,
then you check out at that particular point in time. I mean, if we just expand ourselves, look at the world we are in today, right? Our book has nothing to do with politics, but if I just take it for the sake of an example, I mean, look at some of the political leaders of some of the most important countries in the world, right? There's no ageism there. I mean, our own leader, right? He's
yes, yes,
thriving, isn't it? So I think as long as you've taken care of yourself, your ability to contribute meaningfully in various shapes, ways, and forms actually doesn't stop at 40, 50, or 60. It could go as long as you believe it's right for you, right? So I think the idea is to be thoughtful, and not sort of indulge in too much of a short-term thinking, saying, hey, because you're not going to wrap up in the next
yeah,
5 years or 10 years. That's
yeah.
the whole idea, and that's the framework that we are sort of recommending through our book.
Great. I think it's a splendid way to look at things instead of thinking of a career in 2 years, 4 years. I mean, changing jobs are part of the game, but to have that long-term orientation is what am I going to gain vis-a-vis my long-term this thing from this immediate change that I'm going to make. I think that will give people a right way to take the decisions. Great. So, Sundar, I'm sure that we all have this thing. I wish I had received this advice when I was younger, or talking to my younger self and telling me what I would have told myself. So, what is one such advice that you have written in your book for young professionals?
I think one of the couple that I shared earlier, which is sort of just indulge in self-care and being kind, avoid the comparison trap if you can, and if you can add one more, which is whatever you're doing right now is your platform. I think we've all been there where we've made the mistake to reserve our best for the next,
Yeah,
right? I'm going to bring my best self when I become an area manager. I'm going to show the company who I really am when I become a regional leader or a VP. Well, the platform you have today, the job that you have today, that's your way of expression. And I think one of the things we're telling people is, look, our work is nothing but an expression of who we are, right? So if you choose to express yourself well, authentically, automatically you're going to stand out. So please don't reserve your best for the next. What you're doing today, wherever you may be in the organization, wherever you may be in the hierarchy, bring your best self, and that puts you in a very good position to be noticed by people who are the decision makers in your context, in your environment, and you keep moving, right? That's the whole idea. And also, when you're delivering your best performance in the role, in the platform that you have today, you're being seeked by leaders, by other organizations, because look, everybody wants go-getters on their team. Everybody wants people on their team who can get stuff done. So my advice always to anybody who reaches out and says, well, I want to get promoted, is to, hey, please make sure that you're hitting the ball out of the park in your current job. That's
great,
super critical.
great. Yeah. I did browse through your book, Sundar, and I feel the format is excellent because you have made it like a string of pearls with all these, be a marathoner and be an avid learner, be a team player, be a boss magnet, I think these are all very, very essential components for a professional to understand and use it to get a head start. I even like the insights that you have got from the virtually the who's who of the industry. So I think makes the book very solid. Uh, so what's that one key takeaway that you want the professionals to retain from reading Head Start that will benefit in their career progression?
The book has a meta framework of what we call be your best self at work, and
Okay.
then we sort of really expand being your best self at work into six sections that you just mentioned, which is, how do you be an avid learner, how do you be a team player, how do you be a boss magnet, which is managing up, how do you make career transitions, how do you be a go-getter, and finally, how do you play long term, right? Because that's what a career is all about. But I think the key piece is around understanding value, right? The common thread across all of these sections is in any business you're in, whether you're in healthcare, which is perhaps, a lot of the folks who are going to be listening to this come from the industry that we are in, or in any other business, right? Your ability to understand value, understand how value gets delivered, and what's your role in that process is super important. It took me a long time figuring out, how am I adding to the commercial context? How am I adding to the whole value stream of the company, right? And you could be in a direct role, which is generating revenue, or you could be in some enabling role as well. But your ability to understand that is super important, because if you do, then you can join the dots. Even when we talk about things like managing the boss, we're not giving people tricks and tips to suck up to people or, massage their ego. What we're really talking about is, hey, you know what? Your boss has an agenda. Your boss has an agenda to
Right.
deliver enterprise value. So if you can figure that out and actually be a partner with him or her and help them deliver the value that they have a mandate for, of course, you would be in their close circle, and they would want to take you along as they build their journeys. So really, the ability of a young professional to understand how value gets delivered within their organization, what's the commercial context, and the role that they play in making that happen is, I think, is a big lever, and it's almost like a consistent thread across your career, right? It takes time.
Yeah.
It's not intuitive. It's not something that just appears and you figure it out one day. You got to be at it. And that's a question you always ought to be asking, and with time more clarity keeps emerging, but you got to start if you haven't already.
Great. That's wonderful summary of your book, Sundar. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I hope we'll get to write as well. And those who are interested to read more can buy the book. They can read the blog, and they have multiple sources to be more informed as to how to get a head start in their career. Thank you very much, Sundar.
No, superb. I'm gonna just maybe use this opportunity because I do have a copy in front of me. So that's the book for all the healthcare professionals who are watching. Our friends from the pharma community. So it's available at all the bookstores, and of course wherever you buy your books online. So yeah, I mean, do read it, and we look forward to your feedback. And Anup, thank you again. It was always great to spend time with you. Appreciate you making the time for this interaction. Thank you.